Good evening. I don't seem to have sound.
You must be Mr. Boudreau.
I am Jacques Boudreau. That's me. I'm a little hoarse. I have a laryngitis. I apologize.
No problem.
A gift of my daughter from her head cold.
As long as you don't lose your voice entirely.
My office would love that. So I don't know what I need with me, so I just brought my set of plans, but that's fine.
That's fine. I'm trying to figure out how to get this to record. Oh, it says it's recording.
That's what I heard.
Well, I wouldn't normally start recording before we're ready to start, but normally what I do is I go to the Zoom application and log in and then start it from there, but it did this once before. It wants me to put in a one-time passcode, but doesn't give me, I don't have access to the email address that it sends it to.
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Well, they fixed it once before, but I didn't know until just now that it was going to be a problem again.
If I could just call my daughters in.
We'll talk about this more when we get started, Mr. Boudreau. We'll probably want to come make a site visit at some point. I'm an attorney and I have a trial scheduled to start a week from Tuesday. And if we don't settle it, which I'm not sure we will, trial is probably going to last a couple of weeks. So but what we normally do is we start the hearing. When we need a site visit, we have a site visit, and then we have to resume the hearing at a later date. So we'll have to pick a date that fits with my trial schedule. But I don't think that'll be a big problem. I expect you're probably not ready to start construction in January.
Not at all. Where, as you can tell, I'm not even at the property right now, so.
Need to wait for 2 more board members before we can start.
No trouble. The last time I had to bring the same issue before the board in 2017, they didn't need to make a site visit. What's the reason for that? I don't mind, but
the reason is that we have to reach certain conclusions under the legal standard that applies. And one issue is how close your project is to your neighbors. and judging what kind of impact it will have on the immediate surrounding neighbors. So in a situation like, I don't, I was on the board then, I don't remember the hearing. I don't know why we didn't do a site visit.
Don't know.
Most of the time in cases like this, we do. But we'll see how it goes.
Sure, no trouble. We'll get there eventually.
Say it again?
We can get there eventually.
Oh, yeah. So I understand from what you submitted that you've changed careers.
Several times.
Dentist, excellent.
I started off as an engineer, then I was a high school teacher, then I did medical research, then I was a
Oh.
contractor. Now I'm a dentist. So,
I see Nadir's with us. Hi, Nadir.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Good.
All right.
Waiting for Mike. Did you do the work yourself on the previous project?
but almost all of it. I don't know if you got a chance to read that narrative, but I've been in
Oh, yeah.
town for a long time, so I've done a lot of work in town, and this house was kind of destined for tear down, and so it was kind of poked to my heart. So I kind of got into it. I've put a lot of great work into it. So
And
It's
would
a
you do
unique
most of
house.
the, would you do
It's
most
one
of the
of the
work
old-
on?
it's one of the oldest houses in Dover, basically. So
Mm.
one of those little known gems, basically.
Would you do most of the work on this project?
On this project, I'll be the contractor, but my old foreman will be doing bulk of the work, and so actually some people who live in town as well, who will be doing the work as well. So I have a cadre of people who I've trusted in the past, so they're great people to work with. So
Mike, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh,
You gonna
There you go.
join us by video?
Trying.
I've done a lot of work at the house, and most people say I'll never get out when I put into it, but I like the house. So
Well, it's your house, so that's, if it
yeah,
makes you happy, that's all that counts.
exactly. It's my hobby too. So
Hmm.
my house, my hobby.
Okay, so Mike is with us. Let me just get my notes back up here. Where are they? Oh, that's that. All right,
Sorry, I'm under my wife's name, obviously. So
that's okay. We won't
I
hold
think
that
I figured
against
that out.
you. There we go. Okay, so we have one matter on the agenda tonight, and that's a hearing on the application by Jacques Boudreau for relief relating to 36 Dover Road. As you may remember, Mr. Boudreau, you present to the board whatever information you think we need to hear in support of your application. We will then ask you questions, discuss any issues that arise. If anyone else joins us, they'll have a chance to speak. Once we've concluded all of that discussion, we'll close the hearing, and then we'll discuss the matter and take a vote. But as I mentioned before we started, we may want to do a site visit, which would require a continuation of the hearing to a later date.
No problem.
So with that, first thing we have to do, we have to read the notice of the hearing unless there's no objection to waiving the reading of the notice. Does anyone object to waiving the reading of the notice?
no.
Hearing none, the notice of hearing reading is waived. So, Mr. Boudreau, the floor is yours. You can tell us what you're seeking and go from there.
Sounds fine. So the house, I'm looking to do an addition on the house on the back side of it, on the south side of it. I'm looking to remove a porch that was enclosed to make a 4-season porch in part of the house back in the 80s, probably the 70s or 80s. In this course of addition, I'll be on one side, which I didn't actually mention I won't be changing the footprint on the east side, but I'm going to be constructing it over a shop that's there, or it was a previous shop, I should say. And then on the back, I'll be ripping down that porch and putting a 20-foot by 26-foot addition. And the purpose is basically, at this point, the house has 3 bedrooms. The second floor of the house is a classic New England farmhouse. It's very tight. So we need to get another bedroom for my girls, basically, for myself and my wife, I should say. So the addition will encroach further from the existing footprint to the property line. We won't get any closer than the house already is existing to it, which is a good news. We're already very close on one side, one corner, but we'll be coming with about 14 feet on the new addition. Additions with 2 stories tall. I think you have a couple of elevations and such. I'm trying to make the addition look like a classic New England barn that would be on the backside of my house. The house originally, I can bring records back to the 1700s. It's a neat story of a house. I don't want to bore you to tears with it, but it's got a very, very unique history to it. And I've always tried to preserve the character of the house and the renovations I've done. I hope that this addition will kind of seem appropriate and fitting for the house and what I'm doing.
Okay. And you were before the board several years ago.
Yep.
To do some work on the west side of the house that is the closest to the side lot line.
That addition was also, it was previously a 4-season porch, and it was a single story. So I went up one floor on that and put a bedroom above it, basically. So that's the reason why. So we expanded 1 floor up on that. We ripped it down to the foundation and went up to a 2-story addition. Again, we didn't extend the footprint of the house at all in that renovation. So this one on the east side, we'll just be maintaining the foundation walls that are existing and going up with a 2-floor addition. But on the back side, where we're seeking the variance, that's where the puzzle lies.
Okay. And there's no the house meets the setback requirements on all sides except for the west side.
Yeah. When the property was divided back in the 50s, I think it was, the family that owned it previous to the previous owners, they wanted to get 3 plots out of that property. And the one property that's adjacent to me on the west side, they really squeezed it in there. In order to squeeze it in there and meet the minimum acreage, they had to put the property line very close to the existing house.
So the property was divided back in the 50s, did you say?
I think, I apologize, I don't know the exact date on that. That's when the 50s, 60s, that's when the house next door went in. So I imagine it's about the same time.
Jock, is the house next door in Natick, or is that still
No,
Dover?
it's in Dover. It's
Still
the last
Dover.
house in Dover.
All right. I thought you were the last house in Dover.
No. It's owned by it's a small cape. It's owned by it's a 2-bedroom cape, basically. I mean, again, the footprint of the property really dictates that to be a small house. So, and there's power lines by Boston, well, not by Eversource or whoever owns the property lines that go across the back of the property. So it's restricted as far as how close you get to the easement that you can see on the plot plan. And the adjacent property on the west side is even more impinged upon by that easement. So it really is, that house next door is about, I don't know, probably about 15 to 20 feet away from the property line. So they're probably out of variance as well. But again, she's a wonderful person. She's been there for about 8 years, not no more than that.
The house next door, you said, is about 15 or 20 feet from the
I don't know
boundary?
exactly. By my eyesight, it's probably 20 feet away, basically. I mean, it's more than 10 feet. I don't think it's 30 feet though.
So that makes it about 25 feet from your existing structure?
Yeah, about 27 feet, 30 feet. I mean, again, it's somewhere around there. There's this set of yew bushes dividing the two properties, basically apple trees. Again, it's close enough that if the yew bushes weren't there, that we would see, her property easily, and she would see us. But with the yew bushes there, it protects it.
Have any of your neighbors expressed any point of view as to what you're proposing to do?
I think they're all happy. I have very good neighbors, let's put it that way. I can maintain a very good relationship with them. So.
Okay.
I think most of them like the fact that I didn't rip down the house and put up a huge monstrosity.
So just to be clear on the record, your proposed addition will not be as close to the lot line as your existing structure,
Most certainly.
but it will still be closer to the lot line than what's allowed in terms of minimum setback.
Yeah.
Okay. And it is a two-story, you're turning a one-story porch into a larger two-story addition, right?
The porch is going to be obliterated. The porch as it sits is about an 18 foot by 10 foot porch, basically. So that'll be just ripped off. It's on a slab foundation.
Right. But that's one story?
Yes, one story.
Because what you're doing is you're going not only toward the lot line more than the porch already is, but you're also going up a second story.
Yep.
So you're encroaching, vertically as well as horizontally.
Yep, that's true. I think hopefully in an visually appropriate manner.
Yeah. Now you mentioned you're seeking a variance, but you know the difference between a special permit and variance?
No.
Okay. Well, just so you understand, there's two kinds of relief in a situation like this. One could be a variance, the other could be a special permit. Special permit standard applies I think in a situation like this where you're what's called a non-conforming structure, pre-existing non-conforming structure. Your house was built before the zoning bylaws were enacted. So once they established the minimum setback, your house, if built new, would be in violation of that. But because it's pre-existing, it doesn't conform to the new legal standard. So that's what they call a pre-existing non-conforming structure. And in a situation like that, you're allowed to increase the non-conformity as long as it doesn't adversely affect everyone around you. What the phrasing is, it has to be, you can do it unless it would be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure. So it's not just any increase, but it has to be substantially more, it has to be harmful in some way, and not only harmful, but substantially more harmful than what you already have. Anyone have questions?
Jacques, what's the size of the house as it sits now? What is your square feet?
I think, I apologize. I never understood how those computations are made, because some people say it's the outside perimeter of the building. Some people say there's an exception. I don't know. I say about 2,800 square feet, probably. I don't know.
All right, good. Thank you.
Is that shown on your plans, your drawings that you submitted?
No, I mean, I don't, again, you talk to 5 different realtors and they'll give you 5 different answers of how big the house is. So I don't know. I could calculate it out for you pretty quickly, but I don't have it directly off my top of my head.
Well, the property card that's on file with the town says and I don't know how this is calculated exactly, but it says the gross building area is just under 3,900 square feet. The finished building area is 2,364.
Yeah.
Maybe they count the basement, the rest of it might be the basement.
Well, the basement, it says, is 1,222, but is the basement finished?
No, it's a rubble wall foundation. It's not even 6 feet tall, barely, basically. So I shouldn't say the part of the basement that's the workshop over by the driveway on the east side. That's technically finished. It was a shop space, but again, it's going to be gutted out. So when I was in dental school, I used it as my office basically. So it's basically, there's a little bathroom right there, and my office was down there while I was in dental school. Now it's just basically storage,
Okay.
but it'll be ripped out when I do the addition.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one, Alan. You indicated the house as it currently exists was built in the late 1700s.
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns that when you rip off the old porch and you go up 2 stories, that some of that old construction will be bad and you'll have to actually take down more of it to bite into the house to get good solid structure?
So I'm right now living at my mother's house on Pleasant Street. So this concern came up a while ago. So I actually demoed out part of the kitchen basically because the kitchen was in failure. So I moved out and demoed it out. And so I can clearly see all the structure on the second floor and the first floor. And that architecturally dictated why the plans that you have what they are there right now. Because basically every architect that looked at it was like, well, we don't know what's underneath these walls. So I said, you know what? I'll just rip out the damn walls. So I ripped out the ceiling and the walls. So it's all clearly visible. And no, everything that I've drawn on those plans is the structure is fine. Luckily back then they built houses well and they used good wood. So
Well, it's not it's not the quality or the thickness of the wood. It's what's been eating at it over the centuries.
but the favorable things are that south side wall is a non-supporting wall because it goes up. The joist structure is going from east to west, so that wall is not integrated to the structure, and so basically it's since it's a southern wall. Again, the reality is that it's all been opened up. If it wasn't opened up previously when we did the last renovation on the second floor, it's opened up right now, and every architect has already seen it and taken a look at it. Then it's okay.
So you're not going to be on this old house finding the hidden defects that have to.
I found many wonderful surprises in this house, but I've always said that houses can deal with neglect a lot better than they can deal with abuse. And this house was a very neglected house, but it wasn't abused. It was just basically people lived in it for 50, 60 years. They didn't do much to it. And, you know, when I inherited, when I bought it, basically, there's not a lot of stuff that really was like, oh my God, what was somebody doing here? It was just basically kind of get back to the raw structure. And that's the neat part about these old houses. People like, you know, when I did contracting, I loved working with old houses because, you know, they were typically, you kind of knew, you could discover very quickly what you were in for. If I thought the house wasn't worth saving, or if there were parts of it that were in danger, I wouldn't have bought the house.
Does the house have a fieldstone foundation still, or is that placed?
The fieldstone foundation is in all of the portion that's except for the east shop area. Well, right now it's my office area basically, but it was a shop area. The previous owner, the house was. I wonder how far to go down that path. The previous owners had taken a storage area that was being used for the farm, and she had made it into her pottery studio. She was a potter in town and used to teach classes there. I took it and gutted it out. I left I redid the half bathroom that was there, and I put an office space there for myself to study basically because it was a tight space when it's a school. So right now, again, it's electric heated, but that's a cinder block foundation over there. But the original house is it's a field cell foundation. Yes.
So have you ever calculated the estimated cost of all the effort you put into?
No, I don't.
Moving your house?
When you make a site visit, you'll be like, what the hell has this guy done? I mean, the walls, there's a lot of details in this house. I made my own windows previously to the house because I couldn't find windows that would do what I wanted to. So I made my own double hung, you know, insulated windows basically to match the existing structure. I did the slate roof on it myself, for crying out loud, because I wanted slate and copper, and you know, I'm just a nutcase in that way. I like it. But the fieldstone foundation in the back, which the addition will be adjacent to, is basically mostly slab back there. One of the reasons why the house was built in this location is because of the slab. Where the kitchen is in the house, that is it's like 5 to 6 foot ceiling, and that was the root cellar for the property. So there used to be a separate entrance into it, and the slab foundation, the granite outcrop basically provided a perfect area for root cellar. So when I go back with the addition, I can't make a full foundation back there unless I'm willing to blast the ledge, which I'm not going to. So my purpose is to leave just a frost wall foundation and basically a rat cellar, crawl space for access in the future, and then build above that. If that helps. I don't know how much of my mind you want us to see right now.
Well, we're basically trying to answer questions that the board members have. Anybody
Yeah.
have any more questions? Okay, so then the next question is, does anyone feel the need for a site visit? As I was explaining before we started, while we were waiting for everybody to get on board, we usually do a site visit in situations like this, but not always. And Mr. Boudreau, I was trying to remember, he was before the board several years ago for his previous renovation, and I couldn't remember going out to the property.
You didn't.
And it turns out apparently we didn't.
Yeah.
So, so the question is whether we need to do a site visit here or not. It's not going to infringe, not going to create any, bigger encroachment toward the neighbor than what already exists. So that's less of a concern than it would normally be. Does anyone feel we need to do a site visit?
I don't think we need to. No, we can
No.
see right on the plan what he's doing, and having known Jock and his parents since they were born, I trust whatever he's doing will be a very good job.
Thank
Well,
you.
there you go. You've got some cred with the board.
So one question I had was just around the ledge that's referenced in the first site plan.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about kind of that and kind of how, kind of maybe moving closer towards that makes any difference at all, or if it's sort of not an issue?
No, it's not. This area of, if you look, let's go into a little geography for a minute. If you look at the way the Charles moves around Dover across the Mass Horticultural Society property,
Yeah.
it does this really crazy blue. And one of the reasons why is there's a ledge right there. And it's one of the reasons why there's a natural aquifer in the area, but the ledge is really high up. Back in the 1800s, Olmsted actually did a large retention site changes in the Meadowbrook area. But the ledge is basically, my house is the highest house in that area because it's perched on the ledge, which is kind of nice. Again, back in the 1700s when they built the house, they wanted to choose something else out of the way of water and such. So, and they purposely chose the front portion, which was the living portion of the house, where they could get a full foundation, and the rear portion where the kitchen was above the stone cellar where the ledge was.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat. So the reality is that I don't need more cellar space. Again, I'm okay with what I have. I never have planned to put a pool room down the basement or anything like that. So if my first floor ends up being just a family area, I'm content.
Yeah, thank you.
So I haven't heard anybody say they feel a need to do a site visit.
No.
Is everyone comfortable not doing a site visit?
I am.
Yeah.
Well, Alan, I'm kind of constrained. If we do a site visit, it probably has to be this week or, earlier in the weekend, because I might be traveling next week.
Well, we can't do it this week because we have to post a notice, and it takes 48 business hours to do that. So it'd have to be sometime next week.
And I'm leaving on Tuesday for 2 weeks. But some of the other board members could go.
Well, you can't not go and still vote on the decision. So,
Right.
Which, we can do it without two of us, but not without more than two. But the real question is there a need to do it? And if there's no need to do it, then it doesn't matter what our scheduling limitations are. So, Mike, do you feel a need to do a site visit?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward and simple.
Nancy, how you feel? Sorry, you're muted. You get your sound on?
Sorry,
Ah,
I said
there we go.
it's straightforward. I don't feel a need for a visit.
Okay. So we won't do a site visit, and in that case, unless there's further questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now the board discusses the request for relief, and as I mentioned earlier, the standard is, this is a non-conforming structure. So the standard is whether what's the proposed project, let me go back a step. A non-conforming structure can be extended or altered by special permit unless the changes would be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure. So that's the question, is whether this would be substantially more detrimental. Does anyone think that it would be?
No,
Nope.
no.
Then I'll entertain a motion to grant a special permit.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
One other question, does anyone see a need to impose any conditions? It's permissible if we feel the need to impose conditions, but I don't see a need for that here.
No.
No.
Okay. Then we voted to grant a special permit, and Mr. Boudreau, what happens is that, as you may recall from before, we will issue a written decision. It gets filed with the town clerk. There's a 20-day period after it's filed with the town clerk for someone to challenge our decision on appeal. And if when the 20 days is up, the town clerk will send out a notice indicating whether or not there has been an appeal. And if there is no appeal, then the special permit decision takes effect, and you'll be entitled to get a building permit, presumably from the building inspector, as long as he doesn't see any other issues, Concom or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I can ask for. Thank
I'm
you.
not sure how, I don't think it'll take much to get the decision done. I'll try to get it done before my trial starts, which is a week from Tuesday.
Thanks. We won't be starting until March at best. No, I don't believe in putting foundations in the wintertime. So we have time.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
And stand by, and we'll get the decision done as promptly as we can.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Same to you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Same to you.
Okay, before we adjourn the meeting, I don't know if you all heard, but our town administrator has resigned. His last day is Friday.
Wow.
He's from the Cape, and apparently he and his wife want to go back to the Cape. So there is a search process being started by the selectmen to find somebody to fill the slot. There is some kind of reception for him apparently tomorrow afternoon at the townhouse. I don't know if any of you have dealt with Chris Dwelly at all, but if you're so inclined, you can drop in and say goodbye.
I only met him once. Did you meet him? Have you had any dealings with him?
Well, I've met him. I've met him a couple of times in the office and have talked to him on the phone several times. We had issues with the planning director, Courtney Starling, for a while, and
I remember that.
he got involved in that. So I had some phone calls and some emails, but mostly, things. The only other time I've really emailed with him is when we need input from town council, and because that costs money for the town, it's normally they expect us to get advance approval before we spend any town council time.
So this will be a hard person to replace, I would think. I don't know.
Well, usually what happens is that Dover's a small town, that it's a good place for somebody who's been an assistant administrator somewhere else or whatever to get a job as the town administrator. And often what happens is that they'll stay for a few years and then move up to a bigger town, get a more job with more responsibility, more challenges, and move up the ladder that way. From what I understand, he's going to be doing something that's not town administrator. I'm not sure what. So he's
Okay.
not necessarily following that ladder, but I gather they had a strong desire to get back to the Cape.
And I guess his assistant has also resigned.
Uh,
Chris Dwelly's assistant has also resigned, so she's
I
gone
hadn't
too.
heard that, but
Yeah, they both left, and the treasurer, all three of them have resigned.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay, well, I haven't talked to anybody down there lately.
yeah, so it's gonna be a whole changeover.
No,
Interesting.
Mm,
But, there is, they should be able to find somebody because the job pays pretty well. I happened to, I don't know where I saw it, but I looked up, I think when I first heard he was going to leave, I Googled him and somewhere it said that his salary is over $160,000 a year. So
Yeah.
that's good enough money that
in fact,
somebody who's capable ought to be interested.
we'll see.
Well, we were lucky because Dave Ramsey, was our town administrator for quite a long time.
Mm,
But that's probably not to be expected in a small town like this anymore. Okay, anything else anybody wants to mention or discuss?
Have you looked at the development that's going on 109 there? They took all the trees down. They're starting to dig the hole for the apartment complex.
Yeah, I just today was copied on a letter from Chris Dwelly to the State Housing Authority, asking for the state to give preference for some of the affordable units to people who either live in Dover or work in Dover. And it mentioned that construction had started.
Oh, yeah, it looks like it's moving along.
Well, they had just a couple days ago, the 20-day appeal period had lapsed on our modification of our decision. So that was the last thing they needed in order to be able to start.
Did they ever get a will serve letter from the Aquarium Water Company?
I have no idea, but they can build the thing without it, but they can't.
You can't fill it without any water.
Right.
I thought he couldn't get a permit to demolish the structures until he had an official letter from Aquarium.
I don't know. It's up to the building inspector, I guess. Not our job to
Right.
enforce those kind of.
Yeah, I know. Just curious.
Yeah, no, I don't know. But
Alan, do we
Yes.
have any information on 25 Haven Terrace?
well, they filed
Either-
suit.
Yeah, filed suit, right? Any more?
Well, in most litigation, what happens when people get sued is the suit gets started by filing a document called a complaint, which says, the defendant did thus and such, and that violated my rights. And the defendants then would normally, in most cases, file what's called an answer, where you either admit or deny the facts that are alleged, and you normally deny that you're responsible. But under the zoning statute, towns and their boards are not required to file an answer to such a lawsuit. So what'll happen is that, well, most likely, we don't know for sure, but what normally happens is you start a process they call the discovery process, where each side asks for information from the other side that either supports their claims or supports their defenses. And so you can ask for documents, and you can also ask written questions, which are called interrogatories, just a fancy Latin word meaning written questions. And then the other party answers the written question. So what I expect is that the plaintiff will serve interrogatories, and then town council will probably work with me. I don't think all of us have to answer those things, but I might. And so I would work with town council to prepare answers to any interrogatories they file. And we would produce any documents that they request. The other major element of discovery is to take depositions, which means you go to a conference room, they ask you questions and you give answers under oath. Again, if they want to take depositions, I'm sure they would want to take mine. Whether they would want to take anybody else's, I don't know. If they wanted to do anybody else's, it would presumably be the three of us who voted officially on the decision. So we'll just have to wait and see what, town council will let us know if any of that stuff happens and we need to do anything further.
Thank you.
And then once all that is done, I would, there's two things that can happen. One is if there's no real dispute as to the facts that matter, parties can move for what's called summary judgment, which says because there's no dispute, no facts in dispute, we don't need a trial because the purpose of a trial is to decide who's telling the truth. So if there's no facts in dispute, then the court, without a trial, simply applies the legal standard to those facts and makes a decision. I think that's it's quite possible that would be the result here, but it's conceivable if there are relevant facts in dispute that the case could end up going to trial at some point a year or two down the road.
Painful.
Yep, that's what I do for a living.
Yeah. Like, oh my God. It's much more fun selling Christmas trees.
But just Alan, from a sort of our involvement perspective, are you primarily navigating all of that with town council? So we don't necessarily need to take any active steps individually?
Yes, unless you hear something from me or from town council, you don't need to do anything.
Got it.
If we have to do something like answer interrogatories, and there's any uncertainty as to how to answer them, I may consult, or town council may consult with the rest of us to come up with the final answers. But there isn't going to be a lot of that. From my view of all of what happened and how we made the decision, I would be surprised if he had any success in the litigation, but you never know.
From your experience, just anecdotally, are these things that come up frequent? Are these types of issues frequent, or is this likely to be something that gets resolved through some sort of settlement? And presumably, we're no longer sort of negotiating a sort of resolution. So any kind of, the conversation originally had been that they were still working things out among the parties. If they do, does that sort of change any of our current litigation?
Well, one thing to be aware of, there is a separate lawsuit that was filed by the owners of 25 Haven Street.
I didn't realize that.
And that's actually a rather interesting. You can find the complaint. Do you know how to log into the court filing system? You can download the complaint and take a look at the allegations, but it's actually quite a interesting story with a lot of complexity to it.
Yeah.
And that's independent. That doesn't have any effect on the case against us, I don't think. I haven't been involved in a lawsuit that involves the Board of Appeals before, so I can't speak as to generally how it works in cases of this sort. I can only talk about my experience in other litigation more generally,
right?
Which may not be of much help in this is kind of an unusual circumstance. And if you're in a bigger town or a city where there's bigger development projects and more disputes, then there's more of this sort of litigation, but it's unusual in a small town like Dover.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I will write up the decision and circulate it for comments. We don't have any other pending matters at the moment, so I'm not sure when we'll meet next, but I will be sure to let you know the next time we get an application.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.
Thank you so much. Happy New
Lauren,
Year.
have a good trip wherever you're going.
Yeah, California. I'm
Oh,
going to
great.
California.
And Mike, you have a good trip wherever you're going.
I have a piece of information for you.
Uh-huh.
I have it from a little birdie that Mr. Corrigan's been working really hard about another 40B right behind Red Robin Pastures.
Oh, I'd
that-
heard, I
Something-
gathered that was a possibility.
Yeah, it's becoming more of a reality as time goes on.
I had
working
heard that
hard
there,
to,
I had heard
uh,
that there were efforts to buy there's the lot behind, what's the name of the abutter? John.
Not so.
Natos. Behind him, there's a
Natos.
lot that fronts on Tisdale. And I'd heard there were efforts by the developers to buy that lot so that they could do more of this sort of thing.
They really want to buy Venanzas, but I don't think he's gonna sell. He's been there his whole life. He's pretty stubborn gentleman. I think he's gonna stay, but who knows? Who knows?
Well,
Boy,
we'll see.
Mr. Corrigan's working hard on it.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Hmm.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.